list of things is what we will explore now. But before that, let's take a step back to our present. Right now, you probably got to work in something with 4 wheels, an engine, and a cup holder. Maybe you took a train. Maybe you just walked. Either way, nobody questioned it. Nobody looked at you funny. Nobody had to convince you that sitting inside a metal box moving at 60 miles an hour was a completely normal thing to do. Now take all of that away. No roads, no wheels, no engines, just you, bare feet, and a world so full of living, breathing, enormous creatures that the ground literally shook when they walked past. And here's the thing nobody talks about. In that world, before everything changed, those creatures weren't trying to eat you. They weren't running from you. They weren't afraid of you at all. So the question is, what were you doing with them? Because if you believe the Genesis account, there was a man named Adam who walked in a world where every animal on Earth was herbivorous, cooperative, and completely unafraid of humans. No predators, no prey, no fear. Just an entire planet of living creatures, from the largest things that ever walked the Earth to feathered sprinters that could outrun a modern racehorse. And all of them, every single one, at peace with the person standing next to them. Which raises a question that almost nobody has thought to ask. How did Adam get around? That's what this video is about. Because once you start thinking about it seriously, the answer gets strange and fascinating very quickly. These aren't things you'll find in a textbook. These are hypotheses built from biomechanics, animal behavior, biblical context, and some facts about prehistoric creatures that are so strange they almost sound made up. Almost. Let's start with the fastest thing Adam may have ever sat on. Most people, when they picture ancient human transport, picture a horse. But horses, as we know them, weren't domesticated until around 3,500 BC at the earliest. So what was moving fast before that? Meet the Ornithomimus. It looks like an ostrich wearing a dinosaur costume. Feathered, lightweight, built entirely for speed, capable of reaching 43 miles per hour. It was also, critically, a pure herbivore. Seeds, plants, fruit. That's the whole menu. No claws designed for killing, no teeth for tearing flesh. Just a fast, feathered, long-legged animal with absolutely no reason to be hostile. Here's the hypothesis. Before the fall, before fear entered the animal kingdom, an Ornithomimus had no instinct to flee a human. That flight response, the thing that makes wild animals bolt the second you get close, wasn't there yet. Genesis 9:2 is specific about this. God tells Noah that the fear of humans will now fall on every animal. The word now is doing a lot of work in that sentence. It implies fear was added. It wasn't original equipment. So picture an Ornithomimus in that original world. Calm, unafraid, and fast enough that Adam could cover ground in hours that would take days on foot. The world's first horse wasn't a horse at all. It was a feathered, 2-legged sprinter that ran like the wind and ate like a rabbit. That's the living motorcycle hypothesis, and it's just the beginning. Now here's where things get genuinely strange. Most people assume hippos are water animals. They're not really. Modern hippos are semi-aquatic because of behavior that evolved over time, largely driven by heat regulation and eventually survival pressures. Their ancient relatives were far more terrestrial. They walked, they roamed, they covered ground. But here's what nobody talks about. The aggression that makes a modern hippo the most dangerous large animal in Africa. That territorial fury, that explosive charge, is an adaptation. It's a response to a world full of threats. Nile crocodiles, lions, humans with spears. Take all of that away, and what you have left is a large, barrel-shaped, surprisingly fast land animal with a flat back, a calm temperament, and legs built for walking long distances. Hypothesis: the pre-fall hippo was basically a living ATV, stable, low to the ground, wide enough to sit on comfortably. And because it followed the same river routes every single day out of pure habit, not fear, just routine, it was predictable, scheduled almost. Adam wouldn't have needed boats on the rivers of Eden. He had 3-ton herbivores that floated naturally, followed fixed aquatic routes, and in a world without aggression, would have accepted a rider on their back without a second thought. The world's first river taxi was a hippo, and nobody ever thought to say that out loud before. But if you want to talk about scale, real scale, you need to talk about the Paraceratherium. Say that name slowly, because this animal deserves the weight of it. The Paraceratherium was the largest land mammal that has ever existed on this planet. It stood 6 meters tall. It weighed up to 20 tons. It looked like a hornless rhinoceros that had been scaled up by someone who wasn't paying attention to the limits. And it ate only plants. Leaves, mostly, pulled from the tops of trees that nothing else could reach. Here's the hypothesis. Climbing onto a Paraceratherium wasn't riding. It was ascending. This wasn't a horse you mounted. This was a living hill you climbed. And once you were up there, 6 meters above the ground on the back of a calm, herbivorous giant, moving slowly through the landscape, the view would have been extraordinary. Every river, every valley, every herd of animals moving across the plain. All of it visible. All of it spread out beneath you like a map. Adam naming every creature in Genesis wasn't just a spiritual act, it was a survey. And the Paraceratherium may have been the platform he surveyed from. Now here's something that sounds absurd until you think about it for more than 5 seconds. The Ankylosaur. Armored, slow, built like a tank. Most people write it off as a defensive animal, which it was, after the fall, when things were trying to eat it. But before that, that armor was just there. And here's what that armor actually looks like up close. It's flat, it's segmented. The plates interlock across the back in a way that is, biomechanically, remarkably stable. Like natural cobblestones, like built-in grip. Hypothesis: the Ankylosaur's back was the most naturally rider-friendly surface of any large animal in the prehistoric world. Not fast, not graceful, but utterly stable, completely load-bearing and impossible to tip. For crossing rocky terrain, moving through dense vegetation, or carrying supplies over difficult ground, nothing else came close. The living tank wasn't a weapon, it was a vehicle. But not everything Adam traveled on needed to be large. This is the part people miss entirely. Genesis says Adam named every animal. Every single one. That's not just a list. That's a relationship. A recognition. And in a world without fear, that relationship would have worked both ways. Animals respond to humans who know them, really know them, in ways that still surprise researchers today. Elephants recognize individual human voices. Crows remember human faces for years and pass that information to their offspring. And these are animals living in a post-fall world full of stress, trauma, and survival pressure. Now imagine that same intelligence with none of the trauma. Hypothesis: small feathered dinosaurs, microraptors, caudipteryx, animals about the size of a large turkey, weren't mounts. They were companions. They moved through dense undergrowth Adam couldn't easily navigate. They responded to his voice. They flushed fruit from trees. They changed behavior at the scent of water. In a world without fear, the cooperation between Adam and the smaller creatures may have been something we don't even have a word for today. Not tamed, not trained, just mutual. And then there are elephants. Elephants exist at the edge of 10,000 BC. Now I know most of you would say, we believe it all began at around 4,500 BC. Well, chronologically that is true, but that's a topic for another video, so make sure you subscribe to not miss out on the timeline exploration. So yup, the elephants. They carry something no other animal on Earth possesses in quite the same way. Spatial memory so precise that herds follow the same migration routes across hundreds of miles for generations, passing that knowledge from mother to calf like an inherited map. A pre-fall elephant, raised without trauma, without poaching, without the accumulated stress of a world that hunts it, would have been at peak cognitive cooperation. The research on elephant communication already suggests a level of social intelligence that makes most animals look simple by comparison. Elephant herds warn each other about specific humans through low-frequency rumbles that travel miles underground. They mourn their dead. They remember water sources that haven't been visited in decades. Hypothesis: Adam didn't just ride elephants, he followed them, used their memory as navigation. An elephant that knew where every water source, every fruit grove, every safe crossing in the region was, and had no reason not to share that knowledge, was more useful than any map. The elephant wasn't just transport, it was the original GPS. Here's the thing that pulls all of this together, and it's the part that gets me every time I think about it. We assume ancient humans were limited because they didn't have our technology. But the world Adam is described walking through wasn't a world of limitations. It was a world of abundance so complete that the very animals we spend millions of dollars trying to study and understand and carefully approach in the wild were just there, calm, unafraid, present. The Triceratops with its frill creating a natural backrest, the flat area behind it perfectly positioned for a rider, the Brachiosaurus, 60 tons of calm herbivore, whose back sat high enough above a flooded landscape to stay dry while crossing what would be a river to everyone else. Every animal shaped by a design that, in a world without violence, becomes something different than what we think it is. We look at these creatures through a post-fall lens. We see the horn, the armor, the size, the speed, and we see weapons and defenses. But those same features, in a world where nothing was trying to hurt anything else, were just shapes, useful shapes, shapes that fit. And there was a man who knew every single one of them by name. In a few thousand years, we went from potentially riding Ornithomimus at 43 miles an hour on open plains, to riding horses, to sitting in cars, to putting people in rockets. The whole arc of human transportation is really just us trying to get back to something we once had for free. Speed, scale, connection to something larger than ourselves. We built engines to replace the animals. We built roads to replace the planes. We built GPS to replace the memory of elephants. And somewhere in the process, we forgot that there was once a version of this world where none of that was necessary, because the world itself was enough. And the most extraordinary vehicle ever made wasn't built in a factory. It breathed. It ate plants. It let a man climb on its back and showed him everything. We've been trying to get back to that view ever since. What animal would you have ridden? Let me know in the comments. And if this made you think about something you'd never considered before, that's the whole point. See you in the next one.